Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, welcome everyone to our continuing study of the book by Swami Chaitananda on the life of Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, her divine play. Haima tells me that we're on page 625, the beginning of chapter 31, the human aspects of Holy Mother. So before we begin, is there anything anyone would like to add to our conversation or ask, any concern from our past discussions? All right, Haima, if you would begin.
Sure, Brother Shankara. There is a little Sanskrit poem, but I will read the English version of it. The human aspects of Holy Mother. Out of your grace, redeem your child who is full of faults and has fallen into delusion. You are the ship that takes people across the ocean of worldliness. I salute you, Supreme Mother of the Universe.
Abhedananda wrote so many hymns to Mother.
Beautiful hymn.
Yes.
God incarnates in every age to demonstrate how to live as a human being. Only a human being can manifest the 9 kinds of rasa, sentiments or moods, which we find in a traditional Indian drama. Those are Sringara, erotic; Veera, heroic; Karuna, compassionate; Raudra, angry; Adbhuta, marvelous; Bhayanaka, terrible or dreadful; Bibhatsa, monstrous; Hasya, humorous; and Shanta, peaceful or calm. We see various characters in the divine dramas of the avatars who perform roles according to these rasas. Ramachandra, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Chaitanya, and Ramakrishna acted in the main roles. But a skillful actor or actress can make even a small role lively and earn high praise from the audience. All roles in a drama are equally important and worthy of a talented actor or actress. Playwrights base their characters on people whose lives are eventful and successful, glorious and famous, adventurous and courageous, heroic and patriotic, talented and creative, historic and religious, or perhaps endowed with eternal values and motivated by public interest.
Would you please read that list again?
Definitely.
Starting with playwrights. That's just, it's something for us to internalize.
Exactly.
This is a brief summary of the range of opportunities to express our infinite nature. Each one adventurous. Adventurous, there's no limit to the kinds of adventures we can involve ourselves in. Positive, negative, but nevertheless, no limit, as we see in the world. So anyway, without me rambling on and on, please, Haima, read that list again. That's
Sure.
really instructive.
Exactly.
And that's why the Swami included it.
Mm-hmm. Playwrights base their characters on people whose lives are eventful and successful, glorious and famous, adventurous and courageous, heroic and patriotic, talented and creative, historic and religious, or perhaps endowed with eternal values and motivated by public interest. Holy Mother's life demonstrates almost all of these characteristics, so her divine drama is interesting, intriguing, and inspiring. It is worth seeing how a divine being acts in the role of an ordinary person. If a poor person acts in the role of a king on stage, he will have to forget his poverty. Otherwise, his performance will not be natural and convincing. Again, if a teetotaler, okay. Again, if a teetotaler performs in the role of a drunkard, he must forget himself in order to perform that role properly. Identification with the role and forgetfulness of one's own individuality are essential for an adept actor. If avatars do not forget their divinity while acting on the world stage, they will not be able to perform convincingly as human beings.
Let me just stop there.
Yes.
Ramakrishna would often say, when people would remark that he was an avatar or a divine being, he would say, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. I'm just a fool." You know, and the thing was, he was not posturing. He would have forgotten. He would have not been in that mood, that bhava, that rasa. He would be in the mood of just an ordinary human being, and then someone would poke him with a question or what have you. And the same is absolutely true of Holy Mother. Then they would remember all the wisdom that was manifest in their being, and speak from there. So this is not some posture that they take. This is not some act that they're putting on. They really do forget. So please read that again about being forgetful.
Sure. Let me start from that. It is worth seeing how a divine being acts in the role of an ordinary person. If a poor person acts in the role of a king on stage, he will have to forget his poverty. Otherwise, his performance will not be natural and convincing. Again, if a teetotaler performs in the role of a drunkard, he must forget himself in order to perform that role properly. Identification with the role and forgetfulness of one's own individuality are essential for an adept actor. If avatars do not forget their divinity while acting on the world stage, they will not be able to perform convincingly as human beings.
Krishna really was Arjuna's friend. This was not a posture that he took. They really were chums. In one aspect of themselves, they really were chums. Doing the things that friends do together. And it was so convincing that Arjuna, in the beginning of the Gita, he says to Krishna, "What do you mean you taught Vishwat?" And Krishna has to remind him, "Oh, we've lived many lives, Arjuna. You don't remember them, but I remember them all." So, please go ahead, dear.
Sure. Like everyone else, Holy Mother ate, slept, walked, worked, talked, laughed, cried, suffered from disease and grief, and passed through worries and anxieties. At the same time, she was unique. She responded to worldly circumstances like ordinary people, but the moment she focused her mind on her true nature, she realized that she was acting on a stage and the world was not real. Should I read this one more time, Brother Shankara?
No, I think that's fine.
It's okay. Human beings live full time in the domain of Maya, but the mother lived sometimes in the domain of Maya and sometimes in the realm of divinity. She could move from one realm to the other at will. Ramakrishna explained this phenomenon. Everyone is under the spell of this world bewitching Maya. When God assumes a human body, he too comes under the spell. Rama wandered about weeping for Sita. Brahman weeps, entangled in the snare of the 5 elements. But you must remember this. God, by his mere will, can liberate himself from this snare.
That should be read again, dear.
Okay. Human beings live full time in the domain of Maya, but the mother lived sometimes in the domain of Maya and sometimes in the realm of divinity. She could move from one realm to the other at will. Ramakrishna explained this phenomenon. Everyone is under the spell of this world bewitching Maya. When God assumes a human body, he too comes under the spell. Rama wandered about weeping for Sita. Brahman weeps, entangled in the snare of the 5 elements. But you must remember this. God, by his mere will, can liberate himself from this snare.
The reason being is that they are the master or mistress of Maya. They are the master or mistress of the gunas. This is what Krishna points out to us so explicitly in the Gita. My Maya is very hard to penetrate, very hard to overcome. But by my mere will, I'm free from it. And I come and go by my will, and I make myself a body, and I leave the body at will. So,
Brother Shankara, I have one question.
yes, please.
When does an avatar reveal that he is an avatar? Or when does he use his powers of avatar? Under what circumstances?
Well, let's just look at the example of Krishna and his mother, Yashoda. If you remember, Krishna got something in his mouth. He was just an infant. He was the Bala Krishna. Had something in his mouth. Yashoda, getting it out, caused him to open his mouth. wide so she could get it out. She saw the entire universe there. She saw the entire universe in his mouth. Sri Krishna danced simultaneously with each of the gopis in this Leela of divine love and divine play. So, and he was just a boy. Sri Ramakrishna, if you read the great master, but most particularly if you read something called the Punti, or portrait of Sri Ramakrishna, he revealed his divinity selectively to various people when he was just 4 or 5 years old. By the time he was in his just at puberty, he was manifesting the most amazing capabilities. And anyone who had any ability to see would see this is no ordinary human being could do this. So they manifested very young. They know it from birth, it is said. But they do forget. And something has to happen to bring it back into focus for them, it seems. Just exactly what was said earlier. If Mother focused her attention, she would recall her divine nature. Now, Holy Mother revealed her divine nature when she was just a little girl to just a few people, her mother, which it confused her mother. She didn't understand what it was that she was seeing. But they always know, but they say themselves that they learn. They learn about this universe that they have created, but when they take human form, it's, as it was said earlier, they are subject to the limitations of Maya. So they have to learn about what the limitations of Maya are so that they may fully overcome them. And this is why Sri Ramakrishna practiced the 64 disciplines of the Tantra, to fully master all 3 worlds, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, or waking consciousness, the active unconscious or subconscious, and the latent subconscious or unconscious. And so, why did he do that? So that he could share it, You cannot share something that is not your own. So even an avatar, having taken human form, must master the form completely so that they can share and become the refuge that they become for us. Does that get it, Sham, or is there something else?
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anyone while we're stopped?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
On the flip side, so many parents of these avatars do have visions of God coming and telling them that they are going to be born as their children. So
Yes.
once the children are born, do the parents also forget that dream, or do they not? How do they then?
They forget and then they remember again, dear. You can find this very clearly in the lives of Ramakrishna's parents. Even Khudiram, Sri Ramakrishna's father, having had this absolutely compelling vision of Vishnu saying, I'm going to be born as your son. After his son was born, he would forget. So sometimes Sri Ramakrishna, this is a story told in the Punti, sometimes Sri Ramakrishna would remind him. Like one time, the family deity, Raghuvir, in their family, was represented by a beautiful salagram, this stone that's representative of Vishnu, or Rama, Vishnu in the form of Rama. At one time, Khudiram was making a very elaborate set of articles, garlands and things covered with the garland was covered by sandal paste, other things. And as he was finishing this, he sat for meditation. Well, Sri Ramakrishna put him into a very deep meditation. This is all related in this book, the Punti. Put him into a very deep meditation. And then decorated himself, Sri Ramakrishna, still known as Gadadhar, decorated himself with all of these things that his father had prepared for Raghuvir. And when his father came out of the meditation, Sri Ramakrishna, or Gadadhar, very playfully said, I am Raghuvir, reminding his father of this. So this is why it's called a lila, a sport, a play. It doesn't have rules, there's no dogma or protocol to it. The divine person and those who pursue spirituality begin to manifest this great spontaneity and fluidity, so that because they're no longer as much, certainly the avatars, but even an ordinary human being having pursued a spiritual life and spiritual disciplines long enough becomes less under the control of the gunas. They become more sattvic. Sattva is by definition the revealing power. And it reveals in the moment according to the auspiciousness of what is to be revealed in that moment. And that's how the avatars behave. And those who pursue spiritual life, this is spoken of in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, that one of the marks of the accomplished yogi is spontaneity and fluidity. Does that get it, Swayam?
Yes, it did, Brother Shankara. And what is the English name of that book, the Punti?
It's the Portrait of Sri Ramakrishna. The author is Akshay Kumar Sen, who was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna and was one of those blessed on January 1st, 1886 by the Master. It was translated into English by a dear friend, along with some other people, but she was the one in charge, in cooperation with the Ramakrishna Institute of Culture in Gold Park, called Kolkata. Her name was Amrita Saul. So if you look for the book Portrait of Sri Ramakrishna, author Akshay Kumar Sen, S-E-N, and a translator or chief translator, Amrita Salm. She was a disciple of Swami Swahananda.
How do you spell the last name? Sam?
S-A-L-M.
S-A-N.
S-A-L-M.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Aaron has been reading that book to me in the mornings here, and it is surpassingly beautiful. As Swami Vivekananda said when he read the first edition of it, he said, "Give him 1,000 embraces. There is not one irrelevant. I find there is not one irrelevant word in this book." Now, for Vivekananda to say that, who was the sharpest of critics, I mean, he would not have said that if he hadn't truly meant it. And so we can, I'm just recommending that book to everyone, particularly if you've read the Gospel. You'll want to go on and read this Punti, or Portrait of Sri Ramakrishna, because it is, I can't say enough good things about it. It just brings joy into every morning when Aaron reads it to me.
Sorry, Brother Shankar, I was writing down I forgot the name again of that lady.
Amrita Sam.
Amrita,
Amrita.
S-A-L-M, Salm.
I got it. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, please go ahead, dear.
Okay. Ramakrishna succinctly described the human aspect of God. The Nitya and Leela are the two aspects of reality. God placed in the world as man for the sake of his devotees.
Notice that Sri Ramakrishna says that the Leela is not separate from reality. He does not say it is a dream. Okay?
They can love God only if they see him in a human form. Only then can they show their affection for him as their brother, sister, father, mother, or child. It is just for this love of the devotees that God contracts himself into a human form and descends on earth to play his Leela. It is because through a human body, one can hear his words. He sports through it. He tastes divine bliss through a human body. But through his other devotees, God manifests only a small part of himself.
Now, if you want to understand what Sri Ramakrishna said in depth, it is spoken of in depth, this idea that Sri Ramakrishna just talked about. If you read Swami Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger, a talk that he gave in Pasadena in January of 1900, Pasadena, California. Christ the Messenger. He talks about the nature of the avatar, of the incarnation, and why it is so important for humanity, for the divine to, as Sri Ramakrishna said, contract itself. Or as the Swami remarked about this, contract itself, the divine to contract itself into human form, which is inconceivable. How can Swami Vivekananda himself had the hardest time getting his head around this. How can the infinite take this human form? And the answer is by their mere will, as Sri Krishna says in the Gita. They can do anything. And so this is why when we take refuge in them, they can, and accept their invitation to take refuge in them, that they can then share everything that they gained through their manifestation as human beings. And they'll share it with us as quickly and as fully as we are able to assimilate it. If they shared it with us all at once, it would blow our circuits. It would be like putting 12,000 volts through a 120 volt line. It would simply burn the electrical connection totally. So we assimilate it. This is why we do spiritual practices. It is not to be a good person. This is what it means to study the art of spirituality, to purify and purify our nervous system, and to make it stronger and stronger. We have no idea what happens to our bodies, really. Only the yogis who pay such close attention to it really notice what is happening to their bodies because of their special practices. But the rest of us, we really don't notice what's happening, except that we do notice over time how that we feel the living presence, and we feel it more and more and more strongly until it becomes overwhelming, and this is Savikalpa Samadhi. When you then know, not think or imagine, but know that you and the divine being are one being and that you are a part of it. Anything else? But through his other devotees, God manifests only a small part of himself. Only an avatar can manage to contain the full sun. The rest of us, we can absorb some rays directly, but mostly we live by the reflection, the moonlight. That's why it says in Chaitanya's prayer, O Hari, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. We can be in and enjoy the moonlight, as it says in the Chandi. Mother is the moon and moonlight and happiness itself. Anything else from anyone before Haima reads on? Okay.
Swami Parameshwarananda recalled, we have seen the mother's two aspects, human and divine. When she was in the ordinary human plane, she followed social rules and norms and experienced pain and suffering, grief and affliction like ordinary people. Extraordinary divine aspect was hidden beneath an ordinary human appearance. But amidst the hustle bustle of her household, her mind always remained calm and focused upward. She was completely detached. When she remembered her true nature, she dwelt in a higher realm that was beyond the reach of ordinary human beings. because Holy Mother was a world teacher. Every one of her actions and words has a deep significance. Wherever she lived, her all-inclusive love made that place and its people her own. She had a special love for her small, poor village of Jairambati. Once, while she was leaving for Calcutta, her aunt said to her, "Sarada, do come again." "Of course, I will come," replied the mother. She then took some dust from the mud floor and touched it to her forehead, quoting a Sanskrit verse, Janani Janmabhumischa Swargadapi Gariyashi. That means mother and motherland are superior even to heaven. As we mentioned earlier, her life in Calcutta was not as free as her life in Jairambati. In Calcutta, she lived upstairs in Udbodhan House, and once a day she went to have her bath in the Ganges. Seldom did she go out for sightseeing or to visit a devotee's house. However, she was always busy with her worship and spiritual ministry. Those who could not go to Jairambati came to her Calcutta residence for initiation and spiritual instruction. We have described the mother's daily routine in Jairambati in chapter 28 and in Calcutta in chapter 29. In this chapter, we shall depict her human qualities so that ordinary people can relate to her. One morning in Jairambati, Holy Mother was helping to husk paddy, which she did almost every day. Swami Arupananda asked her, "Mother, why should you work so hard?" "My child," she said in reply, "to make my life a model, I have done much more than is necessary." Her pure, perfect, and unselfish life is an ideal model for human beings. She left a mold for her children, and it is now up to us to cast our lives in that mold.
But I would just like to remark that Mother was the mother of the universe. She had the energy, the strength, and the courage to persist in difficulties that will daunt us. We should not beat ourselves up when we fail to live fully in the way that Holy Mother lived. It's simply not possible. It is a model. It is not a dogma. It is not, this is the way you must be. It's an invitation to purify yourselves as much as you can. But as she lived, according to Swami Vivekananda, at the fifth chakra. We cannot live at the fifth chakra. It's all we can do to manage to live at the fourth chakra most of the time. If we manage that, we have managed something truly extraordinary. And we venture to the fifth and sixth and seventh in our spiritual practices. So, as Swami Vivekananda said of the mother, she lived at the fifth plane. That's why she could be who she was. If she had gone higher, she would have left the body. But he also said, we fall 1,000 times. We rise 1,001 times. And you all know how revered Swami Vivekananda is in the Ramakrishna order and here in this chair. Vivekananda himself felt completely like a child, a naughty child in Mother's presence. He would drink Ganges water and drink Ganges water and drink Ganges water to purify himself before he came into her presence. So though Mother's life is a model for us, it's a very delicate line. It's a very, we must pursue this because not because it's a good thing to do, but because it's auspicious for us. Not because we're trying to prove anything to the world. We have nothing to prove. We are the children of the divine. We have nothing to prove. But it is auspicious for us to behave as much like the mother as we can. It's absolutely hopeless for us to try to behave like Sri Ramakrishna. I mean, anyone who does that is simply posturing. But Holy Mother, as has been pointed out, lived like an ordinary human being, but a very hardworking, very compassionate, very loving, very engaged human being. It's a wonderful model for us. So we must do what we can to live in that spirit and in that way, to abide in the way that she did. But never beat up on yourself for not managing it. It is, as Swami Sridharananda never tired of saying, slowly and slowly, my dears. If we become impatient, it is just a waste of our mental energy and our time. Now, having said all that, are there any questions or comments about that? Because this is, as I said, a delicate line, a delicate path we're walking. Okay.
Sure. Next subtitle is Holy Mother's Daily Life. The greatness of a person can be ascertained through his or her small actions. In day-to-day life, everybody follows a routine. The mother also followed a routine. She got up early in the morning, bathed, cleaned her teeth with tooth powder, meditated and repeated her mantra, worshipped the master, had breakfast, cut vegetables, cooked food for her household, and served the devotees. When she was a little girl, she helped her mother with household work and cared for her 4 younger brothers. Swami Parameshwarananda tells us that as a girl, the mother bathed in the Amador River. She carried puffed rice and fried eggplant or potatoes in a cloth with her, and after bathing, she shared them with her brothers like any other village girl. Imagining the mother seated under a tree on the bank of the Amador River, eating puffed rice is a scene for meditation. Fancy breakfast food was not available in Jairambati. When Holy Mother started to give initiation, she would buy jilipis or make a halwa and serve it to the devotees with puffed rice. In her old age, Sure.
This is very simple stuff that she,
Exactly.
jilipis, halwa, fancy food was not available in Jairambati, but the mother would make what she could. Jilipis, which were Sri Ramakrishna's favorite treat, and then halwa. But you can imagine it's something made by the mother. If it would be filled with something truly extraordinary in terms of love and energy. So it tasted like nectar. This was remarked on by any number of people who ate the mother's halwa. I don't remember anyone saying anything about jalapis per se, but about the halwa, they said it just tasted like nectar itself. So please go on, dear.
In her old age, when she had lost a few teeth, she would put some puffed rice in the corner of a cloth, pound it with a pestle, and make it into powder so that she could eat it. There was no running water or electricity in Jairambati during Holy Mother's time. The mother carried a water pitcher on her waist from the pond or river like other women and lit her house at night with oil lamps and kerosene lanterns. One can imagine Holy Mother meditating in her mud hut at night with the flickering flame of the oil lamp sending light, dancing on the master's photograph. All the year round, Holy Mother used to wear a sari without a blouse or petticoat. She did not wear shoes. During winter, she might put on a chadar, but she had no other warm clothing. Once in Udbodhana house, at a devotee's request, she wore a warm undershirt for a few days, but then she gave it away. She did not have an umbrella to protect herself from the scorching sun or the torrential rain in her primitive village.
Now, it isn't that we shouldn't have an umbrella. It isn't that we shouldn't have warm clothing. What is the point? If there's something we don't have, we should not limit. We should not be attached to having something we don't have and feel envious of others for having it and so on. The mother lived so simply, she did not even have an umbrella. Oftentimes, someone would run when they saw her walking in the hot sun or the rain. They would run with an umbrella to cover her, but she did not have one of her own. So it's not that we shouldn't own an umbrella or that we shouldn't have any warm clothing or that we should not eat any gourmet food or something, but that we should not lament if at some time, in some circumstances, whatever we might want is beyond our reach. Is that a clear point for everyone? I mean, it is a fine point, no doubt, but is that good with everyone? It's attachment. It's desire that is our entanglement. It's not having things. If you have a nice umbrella, wonderful. If you have a warm sweater, I don't know how I'd live without one now. You know, thin skin, failing heart. I'd freeze if I didn't have, these sweaters. But I don't go shopping for more sweaters. And I'm not trying to hold myself up as some special example. I'm just saying I'm speaking from that kind of knowledge. Anything from anyone? Okay, dear.
Hi, Namaste, Brother Shankara. Namaste,
Yes,
everybody.
Shailesh.
I want to share something. The Swami is talking about mother sitting in the hut and the kerosene lamp going on, and she meditating. I had this experience. It was probably year 91 or 92 when I had this vivid dream, very vivid and very clear dream, where I saw a mother sitting in a lamp light and meditating. And I could see her from her feet. I could see her feet and her head also. like head to toe.
Mhm.
And it was very vivid. And so that was 91 or 92. And then in 94, I traveled to Belur Math, got my initiation. And next day we went to Jairambati. And the moment I saw her hut, I recognized that it was the same hut I had that dream, where I saw her. And this happened 28 years ago, but it is so vivid. That dream 30 years ago, and but it is so vivid that it just got like lasered into my being forever.
Thank
So
you,
just wanted
Shailesh. Swami Prabhavananda was very emphatic about saying this. These kinds of dreams or visions are not ordinary dreams. They're not the ordinary operation of our unconscious or second world being. They are visitations. They are visitations from the divine person. And that's why, as you say, after all these years, you can remember every second of that dream. Like you can replay it in your mind or in your heart, like watching a movie. And that's why when you entered the hut or saw the hut in Jairambati, you said, "Oh, this is the place." Of course it was, because Mother, in that sense, still lives there. And so she manifested that as a grace, as a loving gesture to you. And Swami Prabhavananda told me that this kind of experience is a visitation from the divine. And that's why you say it's engraved on your heart, lasered onto your heart. Anything to add, or anything from anyone else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing it. Anything else? We've got just a few minutes before we start another subhead. So if we want to have a little discussion, this is an opportune time to do it. All right, go on ahead.
Thank you. Observing birthdays is the next topic. Village people seldom celebrate birthdays, especially if there are several children in a family. But they observe the birthdays of avatars, gurus, and holy persons. In 1918, the devotees observed Holy Mother's birthday in Udbodhan house. Swami Ishanananda reminisced, "After I offered a flower at her feet, she blessed me by touching my head and said, 'Now offer flowers on behalf of all the people of Jairambati and Kolpara ashramas.' Tarak, Swami Shivananda, could not come from Belur Math, so offer flowers on his behalf and also on behalf of all of my children, known and unknown." Then she fervently prayed, "Master, please look after their welfare in this life and the next. I am the mother of all. What more shall I say?"
Bah. Please read that again, dear. That is so beautiful.
Yes.
From
Beginning, I will. Village people seldom celebrate birthdays, especially if there are several children in a family. But they observe the birthdays of avatars, gurus, and holy persons. In 1918, the devotees observed Holy Mother's birthday in Udbodhan house. Swami Ishanananda reminisced, "After I offered a flower at her feet, she blessed me by touching my head and said, 'Now offer flowers on behalf of all the people of Jairambati and Kolpara ashramas.' Tarak, Swami Shivananda could not come from Belur Math.
Now,
So,
hold it just
sure.
for those of you who don't know, or it isn't
Tarak.
sufficiently, Tarak was the pre-monastic name, and Mother always called these fellows by their pre-monastic names. Swami Shivananda Mahapurush Maharaj, great soul, great king, great soul, Mahapurush Maharaj. So he couldn't come. He apparently had wanted to come to observe her birthday, but for some reason could not. So this is why she took special note that Tarak couldn't come. I would imagine that the reason she didn't mention Brahmananda, who was then president of the Ramakrishna Order and Ramakrishna Mission, he probably wasn't in town. He might have been in South India or something. So Swami Shivananda would have been the one in charge, so to speak. And Saradananda, the CEO or General Secretary of the order, lived just downstairs from her. So anyway, please go on, dear.
Tarak, Swami Shivananda, could not come from Belur Math, so offer flowers on his behalf and also on behalf of all my children, known and unknown. Then she fervently prayed, Master, please look after their welfare in this life and the next. I am the mother of all. What more shall I say? I think I will stop here, Brother Shankara. It's 6:30, almost 1 minute.
I think that's a very good idea, dear.
Yes, that will be a good stopping point.
All right.
We can catch up next week.
Any final thought from any of you? Anything that you'd like to observe? Anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
She prayed to Sri Ramakrishna to bless all her children in this birth and the next.
In this life.
In this life and the next. Is
Not
there
this.
any...
Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, is there any significance to the just stopping with the next?
Well, all of her children, and Sri Ramakrishna's children for that matter, would have no further lives. And so by this life, she meant in this life, and in the next, she meant whatever form or place they were in after their liberation. That's the way I hear this. This is I know that our left minds cannot hold this thought, dear. It completely confounds our left minds that these avatars can do this, can simply say, this is it for you. They can and do. And that's what Mother was saying. Now, you can become the Master's child now. You can become the Mother's child now. Remembering that they are not two beings, but one being in two forms. Ask and ye shall receive. As I've said, Swami Sarvadevananda is coming on May 17th, 18th, and 19th. For those who want further spiritual instruction from Swami Sarvadevananda, please write me an email. You don't have to have an email address. You can just go to the website and use that. There's a way to do that. You also, if you want to write something down, you can send me something at shankara@vedanta.org. shankara@vedanta.org. Just that simple address. That'll do. For those of you who wish beyond just spiritual instruction from the Swami, but want initiation, he will be offering Diksha, spiritual initiation, on May the 18th. And those who are to be initiated will have preference in meeting with him on May the 17th. Everyone who wishes to meet with him will then have an opportunity to meet with him on May 18th after the initiation and the breakfast that follows the initiation for those who are initiated. Then he will meet with anyone who wants to meet with him for instruction or just conversation. And also there will be opportunities on May the 19th in the morning. As I say, he expects me to manage his schedule for when he's here. So if you want to meet with him, all you have to do is email me and I'll put you in the queue, so to speak. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, is he going to give a talk on Karma Yoga or any of the yogas? One of
Well,
those days.
I'm sure he'll give a talk. What he's going to talk on is strictly up to him. Sometimes he asks me what I would like him to speak on. He hasn't said anything yet, but that would be unlike him. He probably wouldn't ask me until the week before. Yes, he will speak probably on the evening of the 18th. You know, he will travel on the 17th. He'll arrive on the 17th. So it'll be the afternoon and evening that he meets with those people who will be initiated the next morning. It's probably the 18th that he will speak. He leaves in the afternoon of the 19th. And so he won't speak on that day. I suspect he'll speak on the 18th.
He was here with us on Zoom last weekend, 2 weeks ago, Saturday evening, on Zoom to the Boulder Study Group. He was answering our questions, answers, and he stayed 1 or 2 hours nearly with us.
Yes,
1 hour.
Yes. And if you knew the burden he was carrying, for him to offer 2 hours to a group of devotees,
yes,
you'd see what generosity this is.
He was very generous.
He hardly sleeps. He sleeps 3 or 4 hours a night. I don't understand how he manages it. I mean, he's just a few months younger than I am.
Thank you,
So,
Brother.
anything else, dears? All right. Om asato ma satkamaya. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritangamaya. Abir moiti. O dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Ask and ye shall receive. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow evening, for those of you who decide to join us, when we'll discuss Swami Vivekananda's talk, The Real and the Apparent Man, which was the last talk of Jnana Yoga. Then on Saturday, of course, we'll continue our study of Swami Prabhavananda's translation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which he titled How to Know God. And the Sunday talk will be The Wonder of Your Stardust Spacesuit. So that's what's upcoming. Any final thought, comment, or question from anyone? All right, dears. So that we'll pick it up with Swami Parameshwarananda, recalled, next week on Monday,
Thank you.
Tuesday.
Good night.
Good night, good night.